everyone, this is Vicki Verley, the Rock and Roll Prophetess, and I'm coming at you today to make a kind of a different kind of video. Primarily it's about the Black Moon Lilith and the conjunction of Black Moon Lilith with Jupiter in Cancer here recently. Now, there's been some crazy things that have been happening, and I'm pretty shocked. It's not at all what I expected. I thought that it would be all about empowerment of women. I was feeling like something would happen like in some of these third world countries where women are so suppressed. I felt like there would be something happening to empower them, or something great would happen. And to my surprise and dismay, it's been quite the opposite. The day of the conjunction, the Jupiter-Lilith conjunction, I was arrested. I've never been arrested in my life, and it was because of housing court violations, which, of course, yes, I do have some violations that need to be taken care of, some painting and stuff that's not been done, but it was pretty shocking that I ended up getting arrested over this, to me, being a light worker and all this that I like to think of myself. But I'm not here to get pity from anybody, and I'm not trying to be the victim, and so I don't want pity from anybody. And I'm sure there's a bigger lesson in this for me on a spiritual level, and I'm sure I'm going to find it at some point. But that was very shocking when that happened, and it was a day or two after all this. Paula Deen was on the morning shows crying and everything because she had said some racist remarks, which I'm in no way condoning, but I feel like we have to take into account in Paula Deen's case, this was 30 years ago in the South. I'd be willing to bet that that sort of talk was pretty commonplace at that time, and not that I'm condoning it, but I'm saying that, does the punishment fit the crime? Does she deserve to be stripped of her life? And while I was sitting in the jail cell, that kind of came flooding into my mind, her on the morning show crying and everything, and I don't condone that, and I don't condone it now. And I'll tell you another thing, there's people, it's bad enough 30 years ago, people still use that word. And I will call them out on it. I will say, listen, I don't like that kind of talk. That's what I say. I don't want to cause a big fight. I just peacefully say, I don't like that kind of talk. And believe me, it's not for anybody else's benefit, because these people don't have the balls to say that in front of an actual black person. There's no black people around when this kind of stuff is being said, but people still say it. And I will always just say, listen, I don't like that kind of talk. Simple as that. But this isn't about racism either, which, that's a huge topic. As far as that goes, 30 years ago, I'm more of the Maya Angelou school of when you know better, you do better. People use lots of derogatory terms back, even as recently as the 1980s, Other words that we know now that we don't use anymore, because when you know better, you use better. Derogatory terms towards gay people, derogatory terms towards people who are developmentally disabled. So we know better, we do better. That's my thoughts on it. I try to be on that side. Let's grow, let's move beyond. It's not about racism. It's about Black Moon Lilith conjuncting Jupiter. But in the case of Paula Deen, okay, Jupiter in Cancer, this is all happening in the sign of Cancer. She kind of epitomizes, prior to this event, she pretty much epitomizes Cancer. The nurturer, the mother, the food. This is Cancer in action. That's the Cancer woman. The womanly mother staying home, taking care of the children, and this sort of thing. And she's being dragged into the, I felt like she was being dragged into the streets, like stoned or something, being stoned in the streets. Again, not that what she did, I'm not excusing what she did, but does the punishment fit the crime? I just keep coming back to that. Does the punishment fit the crime? And besides being the nurturer, Cancer mother, she's also a very powerful woman, which there's the Lilith aspect of it, And it's as if we still want to, these powerful women, we got to take them down a notch. And you see this how Hillary Clinton is constantly abashed. She's been in there, she takes it. She takes a lot for all of us. I mean, go Hillary. But at any rate, so I'm sitting in the jail cell, and this is coming into my mind. I'm just kind of trying to calm myself and get back in center. And I was just thinking about all this stuff. Some of the other big things that have happened is there's the lady Wendy Davis in Texas, and she was a filibuster, and she stood for hours for women's rights. They were trying to abolish women's rights, and she stood for hours against it. And there's it again. It's this standing up the Lilith, the independent woman, and against the traditional role of women. So it's almost like that's what this has turned into. It's the Madonna whore thing. It's the traditional woman at home, pregnant, the goddess, the empress, versus the independent woman who can take care of herself. And another thing that happened is this in Ohio, where I live. I happen to live in Ohio. John Kasich, this governor, signed this huge law. It's actually a budget law, but it's eliminating all this funding to Planned Parenthood. And it's imposing all these really strict laws on abortions. You have to have the ultrasound, and they're not allowed to counsel raped women on the option of abortion. Women who have been impregnated by their rapists are not allowed to be counseled on the option of abortion. And you know, this is so wrong on so many levels, because number one, where do we get a filibuster? Where do we have any recourse? He just signed this into law. How is this allowed? How is this legal? Is this legal? That's what I want to know. And then secondly, it's not just about abortion. By defunding Planned Parenthood, women don't have access to birth control. So therefore, you know, you're just leading to more pregnancies. If you can't get birth control, you're going to have more unwanted pregnancies and more potential abortions. So it makes no sense, and it's like going backward. It's not the empowerment of women. It's trying to impose this barefoot and pregnant kind of vibe. That's what I'm getting out of it. It's very unsettling to me. It's this Madonna whore thing. And I was thinking about this, you know, how in culture we're just so... and I was thinking about the movie Jumanji, if you remember that movie. And I remember seeing the previews, and I was so excited about it. It looked so good. I love fantasy movies. I love time travel. And if you remember, I was very insulted by the movie because I was doing readings at the time. And I remember in the two paradigms, when Bonnie Hunt, in the first scenario, when her life goes horribly wrong, she ends up being a psychic reader. And then when her life works out perfect, she ends up pregnant. So, and this is this thing that's still trying to be implanted into women. And it's from this 2,000-year-old biblical things, which is another thing, you know. Yes, I believe in God. Yes, I believe we have a spirit and a soul. I'm not just strictly their science or their spirit. I think it's all one thing, and we need to progress to get to it, and through quantum physics and other things. You know, we can't just... I'm not for suppressing information to fit into some 2,000-year-old story. You know, that's not a good plan. And it's this pressure that we put on women that if they can't have children, that they're nothing or something. And that's so wrong. And you know, hey, 2,000 years ago, go forth and be fruitful and multiply. Okay, but hey, newsflash, the planet's populated. The planet is overpopulated. We're putting a drain on its resources and everything, so that we have to take that into account, and that old paradigm isn't working anymore. And I'm not saying don't have kids. I had kids, you know, I have kids, yeah, but this whole thing where we put this, you know, the Empress, you know, things are changing. Times are changing, and we've got to change. I was so shocked by this whole things that have been happening with Lilith. So when I was sitting in the jail cell, one of the first things that I saw was the townspeople coming with the torches, coming through the square with the torches. Burn the witch, burn the witch, you know. And I don't know if that was a past life thing of mine, which very well could be. I feel like I've been persecuted for showing spirituality in other lifetimes, or if it was just a symbol. Either way, it's not a good thing. It's unsettling. And then all this anti-women's rights, reproductive rights stuff started popping up too. So the other thing that I was thinking of when it came to me and sitting in that cell was the Salem witch trials. And so I thought, well, let me go look in history. Where was Lilith then? Where was Lilith? I thought, I wonder if this happened then as well. So I did go through and look at it. And here at that time, Lilith was in Aquarius. So you would have thought then, too, Lilith in Aquarius, enlightenment, forward-thinking, futuristic, and it went completely awry. It went completely the wrong way. So I was trying to find out, you know, the Jupiter-Lilith conjunctions, and I found out that it does happen once every 33 years. I couldn't find a list of it, but I did try to narrow it down using my astrology software, and I kept running charts and looking at Jupiter and Lilith. And a date came up in this 20th century, and the date was April 28th, 1943. So I do some research, and I do some history research, and they kind of had it more right. You know, what happened in that year, one of the big things was Rosa Parks. You know, and it's interesting because it had to do with racism, and it had to do with women's rights. You know, she was, you know, a minority and a woman, but she stood up for herself, you know, and that's Lilith, you know, I think. That's Lilith, you know, standing up for yourself. So the Rosa Parks bus thing happened in that time frame. And the other thing was they were Rosie the Riveter. So women were being empowered. Women were given independence and stuff. At the last Jupiter Cancer, Lilith conjunction in Jupiter, with Jupiter in the sign of Cancer in 1943. So what's changed or what's different now? You know, this is very shocking, the events that have unfolded. You know, that this guy can just sign this stuff into law and we have no recourse over it. I guess there are recourses to move, you know. I guess that's the recourse. And, you know, Ohio's population is declining like crazy and they wonder why people are leaving, but that's also not what this video is about. Okay, I'm going to end it with this final thought. Just as white people have no business using the N-word in this day and age, or for any time for that matter, men have no business having any say-so in women's reproductive rights. Okay, this is Vicki Verley, the Rock and Roll Prophetess, and remember, you are love and beauty incarnate, and I'll talk to you soon.